What we have here is the Multistep Equations Study Guide and Practice. So it's a digital flip book. So there are pages or slides with each of these topics, which are the steps for combining like terms, and it contains some practice problems and error analysis where you have to spot mistakes. So we're going to go through each of these steps and do a little practice together. First step is to distribute. So this is where we use the distributive property. And what we do is we get rid of the parentheses. So you can kind of think of things inside the parentheses as being trapped. We have to get rid of the parentheses so that then we're free to combine like terms and start to move things from side to side. So to distribute, we look at the number in front of the parentheses and the sign in front of it. And we think about multiplying that to everything inside the parentheses. So right here, the positive 2 times x becomes a positive 2x, and a positive 2 times a positive 3 is a positive 6. So it might help if instead of thinking as plus or minus, think of these as positive and negative signs for this step. Here we have a negative 5. We're multiplying to the x, that becomes a negative 5x. Then we have a negative 5 times positive 6, which is a negative 30. So when you fill these in on this page, you're just practicing the step shown on the left. You don't have to solve completely, just do the distributive step. And I want to give you some hints about how to get started. So be sure to take the sign in front of the term with that term. So that means in problem 1, see how there's this minus 4? Think of that as a negative 4, and you have to distribute a negative 4 to the x into the negative 9. Let me recap on the left. Number 1, you are distributing a negative 4 to the x and to the negative 9. Right. Another situation you might encounter is, what if there's no number? If we look at number 1 over here on the right, there's just a negative sign. So what if there's no number? The answer there is it is a 1. So that negative 9x minus 16, what we really have right there is a 1. So kind of there are some invisible ones, like every number that doesn't have a coefficient has a coefficient of 1. It's the same here. So here you're distributing a negative 1 to the 9x and to the negative 16. All right, how to deal with fractions? Well, luckily this case isn't too bad because 1/2 times 4, that's the same as taking 1 times 4 and dividing by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then 1, this will be 1 times a negative 16 divided by 2. So we multiply by the number on top, divide by the number on the bottom. So 1/2 times negative 16, hold to that one, is 1 times negative 16, there it is upwards, 1 times negative 16 divided by 2. 1 times negative 16 is negative 16 divided by 2 equals negative 8. Once we're done distributing, and you'll know you're done when you have no parentheses left in your expression, then it's time to combine like terms. When we say combine like terms at this step, we just mean on each side. We're not moving things around yet. We're just looking at each side of the equation. So here's our problem from the last slide, and that first step we did by distributing. Now I'm looking just at the left side of this equation, and I can see there's two terms that have x in them, so I'm going to combine those. So if there's no coefficient, it's a 1, so this means I have 1x plus 2x's is 3x. There's nothing for me to combine the 6 with, so I just bring it down as a plus 6. Over on the right, sorry about that, there's nothing to combine this negative 5x with, so that just comes down. But these two constants I can combine. Negative 30 minus 4 is negative 34. So let me give you some hints here. You'll know you're done when there are two terms on each side. An x term and a constant, or just one term on each side. So it might simplify down to an x term and a constant, or just one. But you shouldn't have more than that. If you have more than that, there are probably things you can combine. And just like with every step, I think this will be a hint on every step, be sure to take the sign in front of a term with that term. For example, in number 3 here, we have an 8x negative 4x's to combine on the left. Once we're done distributing and combining like terms, the next step is to move variables and constants to opposite sides. So now we start to move things around. So what we do is we do the opposite to move things to the other side. So our goal is to get the x terms on one side and the constants on the other. Doesn't matter which side is which, we can do it either way. So what we've done here is this negative 5x, we move it to the left by adding 5x. Actually, let me. And so what we do is we do plus 5x to move it to the other side. To move this plus 6 to get the constant to the right, we do the opposite. We would do minus 6. So this might look a little different than how we write it out sometimes, but it's the same idea. So we do plus 6, subtract it to the other side, add 5x's to bring it to the other side. Now I have x's on one side, constants on the other. So at this step, you don't have to solve, you're just practicing the steps shown on the left. So those steps are distribute, combine like terms, and then move the variables and constant to the opposite side of the equals sign. You'll know you're done when you have this. The x terms on one side and the constants on the other. So move things from one side to the other by doing the opposite. So you can move a negative 5x by adding x to the other side. Okay, and after you've done that, the next thing is then to collect the like terms. So group these things together. So what we're doing is now combining terms again. 3x plus 5x is 8x. Negative 34 minus 6 is negative 40. So after this step, we should have one x term on one side and one constant on the other side. And in this practice, you're going to do all of the steps up to this point. So you'll distribute, you'll combine like terms on each side, you'll move terms to the opposite side, and then you'll collect them together, and you should end up with two terms. Something x equals a constant, or it could be a constant equals something times x. After that, we solve by multiplying or dividing. So now we are at the last step. So what we do is we undo whatever is happening to the x. Here I have, this really means 8 times x. So to undo that multiplication, I divide. I do 8x divided by 8. Because multiplying by 8 and dividing by 8 undoes each other, leaving me with just an x. And to keep my equation equal, I have to do the same thing to both sides. So I have to do negative 40 divided by 8 is negative 5. So we undo multiplication by dividing. If you had division, we would undo division by multiplying. You'll notice if we take a quick peek back here, what we've done is we keep simplifying this. So after we move things around, we get it down to a one-step equation, and then we solve by multiplying or dividing. So for this problem, you're now going to do every step. Distribute, combine like terms on each side, move things around to get the x terms on one side and the constants on the other. Simplify until you have one x term equaling to one constant, then multiply or divide to find your answer. There's more practice for you to do on this purple page. And then the last slide, what you're doing is you're trying to spot the first step that has a mistake in how these problems are solved. So these answers are not correct. So you're going to drag this blue circle to where you think that mistake happened, and then you're going to fix the mistake over here on the right. This isn't necessarily where the mistake happened. I just moved it to be an example. It could be any one of these steps. A quick note about how you can check that a mistake has been made or check your answer is right is you can plug it back in to the original equation. So I'm just going to use this space for a moment. So, okay, this person, whoever solved it, got x equals negative 4. So what should happen is if, just type the equation real quick. If I put negative 4 in where these x's are, so actually let me change the color. If I replace that x with a negative 4, I'm going to replace it over here with a negative 4 too. This should be a true statement. This negative 4 should be the value that makes these two things equal to each other. So let's evaluate this. Okay. So simplifying. Negative 4 minus 2 would be negative 6. 6 would equal negative 2, doing what's in the parentheses first by the order of operations. Negative 4 plus 6 is 2. Now by the order of operations I need to multiply. Negative 5 times negative 6 is a positive 30 plus 6. Multiplying over here, negative 2 times 2 is a negative 4, so I get 36 equals negative 4. That's not a true statement, which means negative 4 is not the solution, so a mistake has been made. So this is a nice way for you to check your work on your problems. Plug it in, see if you end up with a true statement. If you do, everything's good. If not, you have an error that you need to spot.